Hello everyone, Christina here. Today I'm going to be showing you and walking you through my entire December 2024 release. It is available now at concordandninth.com. So I'm going to show you every single product and then also some cards that I made with each product. The Cheerful Flowers bundle has 3 different products in it. You've got the dies, which has kind of like an inlay die design so that you can cut the base of the flower and then also the outline and the interior pieces. There's also a thinking of you and also the shadow or halo die for it. You can kind of see back here how you can pair them together as an example. There's also a background stamp with the same kind of style of flowers. And then a 6x9 stencil set. Now there are 6 stencils in this stencil set, and you can get quite a variety of different looks with this one. Now something to note that's interesting is that the background stamp matches like this portion of the stencil set. So you can use the stencils to color in the images on the stamp. Now that sometimes because the stamp is very flexible and it really depends on how you pull it off of the clear sheet, it might not match up with the stencil perfectly. So I'm going to show you an example of a card that I created right here where I first stamped and gold heat embossed the lines from the design. And then I used the stencil to color everything in. You can see there's just a couple little white spots that are peeking out where it didn't line up perfectly. But one way you can get around that is kind of line up your stencils, like each layer. There's different flower layers, different leaf layers. Line them up in one area, ink blend that, and then you can shift the stencil a little bit for the other areas. Each one of the flowers is isolated from the other, so it's really easy to just, after you've ink blended one of the flowers, pick up the stencil and then center around another one. That's a great way to make sure you have everything lined up. You could also just be super careful when you remove the background stamp from the clear sheet that it's stored on. You could even possibly, peel it off and then let it sit and kind of shrink back to its original size. Sometimes that helps too when you're using really large background stamps like this. So this is the first card that I made using the stamp and also the stencil set. Here's another one with the stencils right here. And on both of these, I used the Thinking of You dies from the die set. So this is really fun. You can get like 2-tone flowers. There are 2 stencils. I'll just open the stencils and I'll show you. So you have the stencil design that is the full design. And I used that for ink blending this one. I just used a little bit of grapefruit and sorbet and kind of got a nice blend there. So you can use this design that is the full outline of all the flowers, but then you have all the other elements broken out, and you also have 2 flower layers. You've got this one and this one. When you put them together, you have all of the flowers in the design, but as you can see, they're separated so you can have different colors of flowers. Also on the stencils, hopefully you can see this, there are etched lines of the full design. That will help cue you up on how to get them positioned and match up just right on your project. Here's another one where I did the stenciling and had it kind of fade off at a diagonal off to one side. This is a 5x7 card, by the way. These 2 are A2. And if you ink blend on a half sheet of letter paper, you can actually cut it in half, like here it was like this, and you get 2 card fronts. So the stencil is large enough that you can ink blend 2 different card fronts. And then here's a card that features the flower dies over here. I did 4 different inlay flowers, glued them to my card, and then cut off whatever was hanging off the edges. This greeting here is from a different stamp and die set in this release. I wanted to show you just a couple more backgrounds. This one I used a brighter blue. I think that was Aqua Sky. Thought that was really pretty. And then I've got a couple other little die cuts that I didn't have a chance to put on cards yet, but these could very easily go together, pair up for a card. The checking in bundle includes a 6x6 stamp set and also coordinating dies. So you've got lots of big, bold greetings and phrases for your cards, plus some smaller sub-sentiments that you could use paired up with the large greetings or on your own. And there are matching dies for every single image in the stamp set. So even all these smaller ones, there's a matching die. You can see how all of those can cut out the images on the back. For the cards that I made with this bundle, I also used the Geomod stencils. The Geomod stencils includes 3 different stencils. They are 6x9s, so you can ink blend on a full half sheet of letter cardstock and get 2 card fronts out of it if you want. So here's some examples of some different color kind of combinations for using the Geomod stencil. Here's my first card using the Geomod stencil and the stamps and dies from the checking in bundle. So you can see that I isolated one portion of the design. You can see back here on the design, it's just this half, but I stenciled it more near the bottom of my card front. So I just kind of isolated it. This next one, I took cues from the back of the packaging. And I also turned the stencil set so it was more like this. You can kind of see how that matches up there. And I used very, very soft colors. This was Sea Glass, Pink Lemonade, and Buttercup. And for this last card, I decided to make a circle card, and I ink blended on Pink Lemonade cardstock. I thought I would just go ahead and show you the entire half sheet of cardstock that I use when I cut out this circle. It actually fits in right there, and I just die cut the circle. So I actually have quite a bit more of the design that I could use on a future project. But just isolating that one little section for the circle die worked out really well. This is I think it's a 5-inch circle card, and then the circle inside I think is about 4 inches wide. Yeah, it's about 4 inches wide, if you were wondering about the sizing. So the Geomod stencil, once again, has 3 6x9 stencils in it. You don't have to match up the different stencils exactly on the design. However, you can take a cue from the flowers in the stencil that you have a center of each flower, and that will help you line everything up. I thought I would show these 2 products together since I used them on my example cards. I have the A2 Thin Frames dies and the Wavy Lines background stamp. The A2 Thin Frames dies have 2 frame dies and also 2 greetings. So it took advantage of the interior space. So the outer frame is actually an A2 card. So this is the exact size of an A2 card when you put the frame onto your card. The inside frame is 2 3/4 wide by 4 inches tall. And then the 2 greetings inside, you get the greeting and the shadow die. The background stamp is about 5.5 by 5.5 of the actual design. So you should be able to get an A2 card stamped completely with the background stamp. For my first example, I have that outer frame right on my A2 card. It's perfectly sized for that. And then this circle design was actually strips of cardstock that I adhered together in one sheet. And then I stamped them all at the same time using the Wavy Lines background stamp. I followed that by die cutting it into a circle. And I used a 4-inch circle die for that. And then I have that Hugs greeting from over here right on top. This heart right here is actually from the Christina's Essentials die set. And that just fit right on top right there. My second card actually takes advantage of that inner frame. And how I did this one is I stamped both the grapefruit and sorbet cardstocks in the exact same spot so that when I die cut them out and adhered it on my card, you'd have a continuous design running all the way through the card. I think it looks really neat like that. The A7 Thin Frames dies and the Gradual Dots stencils work really well together. So I thought I would show you some card designs with those. Before we get to that, I'll explain the die set. You've got 2 frames and as well as 2 greetings inside. This is very similar to the A2 Thin Frames dies. In fact, you can get the A7 and the A2 Thin Frames dies together in a bundle. So the outer frame is exactly 5 by 7. And the inner frame is 5.5 inches tall by 3.5 inches wide. The greetings inside, you get the actual words, as well as the outer shadow die. The gradual dot stencils are 6 by 9 in size, and you get 2 of them. So as you can see, you have one that is a little bit more horizontal, where you have the small dots kind of going in a gradual fashion going to the larger dots. And then for this one, if you want to have your dots run the other direction, you've got smaller dots on the left, and it goes gradually more to the right, and they get larger and larger. I did it exactly like this and made it a set of 2, so that if you're creating a 5 by 7 card, and you'll see some examples here in a moment, you can have the dots run multiple directions and get them whatever way you want. For this first card, I have the wide stencil, so this one right here, because I wanted the larger dots at the bottom of my 5 by 7 card. I ink blended all of the dots first, and then I removed the stencil and then ink blended over the top as well to get sort of this overlapping color effect. For this card, I used this other stencil. I wanted the big dots at the bottom, so I used the stencil like this. And I just ink blended juniper ink on top of juniper cardstock, and then I splattered on some metallic paint. I also paired this card with the flower from the Cheerful Flowers die set. And then I've got the greetings both down here at the bottom. So I used the outer frame on the 5 by 7 card. It fits perfectly on a 5 by 7. And then I used the inner frame over here, just cut out in white. So this is the December 2024 release. I hope you all enjoyed. Everything's available right now at concord9th.com, as well as your favorite online and in-person retailers.